Hello and welcome to Heroic Media. I'm Patrick Cordova.
And I'm Michelle Bauman.
This week on Heroic Media, the Bill Gates Foundation funds a remote-controlled contraceptive microchip.
A Planned Parenthood clinic in Denver is accused of ignoring signs of the sexual abuse of a minor.
We'll sit down with one of the few U.S. doctors who has successfully reversed the abortion pill, RU486.
Stay tuned for all these stories and more here on Heroic Media. So here at Heroic Media, we discuss headlines that deal with foundational moral issues, and these are matters of marriage and family and life, and we really focus on those because they're so fundamental to society. You know, everything else is really built on those, and so they're really important.
Absolutely, and a lot of times we'll cover stories that revolve around abortion, euthanasia, embryonic stem cell research, human cloning, and homosexual marriage.
Exactly. So Patrick, what's our first story for today?
In our first story, a new form of contraception funded by Bill Gates is set to be available by 2018. This new form is in the form of a remote-controlled contraceptive chip, and this chip automatically delivers a dose of hormone into the woman. So this is pretty crazy. Like, the technology is actually very promising for lots of other things, like maybe people that forget to take their medications, especially like the elderly. I know my grandpa forgets to take his medication, but of course we'd like to see more moral means of delivering this technology as opposed to contraception. But it's pretty cool. It's supposed to, the technology itself, but in this case, with this contraceptive chip, what will happen is it will last 16 years, up to 16 years. And so at given intervals, it just delivers a hormone that, of course, prevents you from becoming pregnant. So there's lots of things that cross my mind, not just besides the fact that this technology is really cool, but some concerns, which I'm sure that they've been thinking about.
Yeah, my first thought was that this was kind of scary, and it's sort of like sci-fi, Brave New World kind of thing, because like you said, it's a chip that's in you, and you turn it on and off with a remote control, and it's still in the testing stages, and they say that they're going to work really hard to make it really safe. But what if, right now, you can only turn it on and off if the control is touching your skin. But what if somebody develops a way to access other people's birth control and turn it on and off? It seems like there would be a lot of implications, I guess, ranging from sort of a petty high school, oh, I'm going to fight with her, I'm going to turn her birth control off, she's going to get pregnant, to sort of a bigger eugenics kind of, oh, well, let's take this race that's undesirable and make sure that their birth control is always turned on.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of implications for this.
There are a lot of implications, especially since you mentioned that. Yeah, I mean, you could see it especially in countries like China and stuff that institute these crazy one-child policies and things like that. You could see them like forcing their people to have this chip implanted. And the chip itself is pretty small. It's 20 by 20 by 7 millimeters. So it's pretty small. It's still, a little bit, it's not microchip, but it's still pretty small. But it's just, some of the implications. It's like, how durable is this thing, right? Like, you get it implanted, and I don't know exactly where they have to implant it or if there's a specific spot. But what would happen if, like, static electricity shocked it, or you got bumped, and or maybe you're playing volleyball or something, and you go dive for the ball, and how durable is it? Like, these are just kind of questions that I would have about it, and I'm sure that they're thinking about these things, and it has to go through testing before it's officially released and everything.
But it seems even if they go through the testing, how safe is it? I mean, you have a background in IT. Is this encryption really safe from being hacked, or could someone come up with something down the road that they don't realize?
That's another risk, right? Because it's like all encryption, given a certain amount of time, will be hacked. And so I don't know exactly what technology they're using in this to ensure. And I think how it is right now, the fact that the remote control has to be so close to wherever it's implanted, I think helps things out. But yeah, those are types of things that you worry about, right? And then, like, what if it just malfunctions? Like, what if you don't know, right? At least with birth control, you're taking the pill and then you're like, oh, I forgot to take the pill for 2 days. I might get pregnant, right?
Right.
But at least, with this, you would have
never
no,
know.
how would
You
you
never
know?
Yeah,
That,
yeah.
I mean, unless maybe there was some sort of, maybe the remote control, they'll have some sort of built-in thing where you can
Where
just be
it
like
alerts
status,
you.
and it'll be like, yep, it's delivered. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
maybe
who,
something like
who
that.
knows?
It's interesting. My other big concern with this was just a health concern. 16 years of pumping hormones into your
Right.
body every day. That's what this has the
Absolutely.
capability for. I mean, how is that good for women? How is that healthy? I know so many people who who reject the artificial hormones, and we don't want to drink milk from cows that have
Yeah.
hormones, and we're so health conscious as a society, I think. But why do we think it's a good idea to just pump these fake hormones into ourselves?
Absolutely. It's such a double standard. And every time I hear the discussion about contraceptives, especially from people who are very health conscious about those types of things, it's like, why are you willing to, eat these certain products that don't have all these hormones in it, yet you're pumping hormones in it against, it's completely against the natural, ability of your body, It's just, it throws everything out of whack. And I think we have to remember that hormonal contraceptives are rated as class 1 carcinogens, right? So just classifying this as some sort of healthcare, just always bugs me. Because it's like, really? And it just reminds me of a conversation that I had with a friend of mine probably about 10 years ago. And she was telling me that she would rather have cancer than become pregnant.
Oh my God.
And I seriously
Wow.
think that maybe a lot of women won't admit that as upfront as she did. But I think a lot of women have that mentality, and that's why they ignore. Either they don't know, or they're willing to be like, "Oh, I'd rather get cancer than be
so
pregnant."
sad.
It's
That's
just so sad.
It's such a sad mentality. And another sad thing is that the Gates Foundation, which is behind this, is pushing contraceptives on third world countries where they don't want that, where they still have this healthy mentality about bringing new life into the world, about children.
Yeah.
So I just found this this interesting quote from a woman in Nigeria, and she said, "We are thirsty and they give us condoms. We are hungry and they offer us contraceptive pills. We are sick and they offer us the most modern techniques of abortion. Silent tears roll down for Africa in a modern world that can neither see our pain nor hear our cry for help."
Man.
And I thought that, how sad, how true that there are such real problems in this world, and all of this focus is going on here. Don't have kids, let's make you sterile.
Yep, exactly. It's completely attacking imaginary problems, I believe, like overpopulation and there's not enough food. I think those things are just imaginary based on scientific facts. And so there's so many different sidetracks we could get on with this, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the technology.
Absolutely, we'll have to see. In our next story, a new lawsuit has been filed against Planned Parenthood in Denver, claiming that the organization covered up the rape of a 13-year-old girl.
Man, that's just crazy,
That's
right?
an awful, awful story.
Cover-ups are horrible, especially situations like this where you have such a young female that's been taken advantage of and pressured against her will, and all these things have happened to her. So apparently this 13-year-old girl, to give a little bit of background, had been raped by her father, and he took her to the Planned Parenthood in order to get an abortion. And basically, there's supposed to be some questions that they ask,
Right,
especially
we're
when
13.
somebody that's so young comes in, so that they can determine if these sorts of things are occurring.
Right, exactly.
So that legal action can be taken, they can call the police and things
And
like that.
and this is what the lawsuit claims. We don't know, of course, it hasn't been
Right.
proven yet. But
Right.
what the lawsuit is saying, that this girl came in, and this is actually her stepfather, which is a significant point because he had a different last name. So this young girl comes in with a much older man with a different last name,
Right.
and nobody asked any questions and said, "Hey, how did you become pregnant? Who is this man?" And that's actually required by law. Colorado law requires suspected sex abuse to be reported, and they never did it.
Interesting.
And what they did is, at his request, they put a long-term contraceptive, injected it into her, even
Right.
though
Against her.
against her while she
Yeah,
was scared of needles. But it was a long-term, undetectable form of birth control, which allowed him to continue abusing her
Right.
without it being uncovered. He, according to this lawsuit, it's charging him with abusing her for 7 years. He was
Wow.
sexually
That's
abusing this
horrible.
girl. And she finally told her mother, but really, if this case is true, Planned Parenthood's actions enabled this. So any claims that this is a pro-woman organization or that they're really concerned with women's health, in this case, these allegations are saying that they're concerned about abortion and they're concerned
Right.
about their bottom line, and they weren't interested in helping this little girl.
But wasn't this just an isolated event?
Well, you know, some people might claim that, but it's
Right.
interesting because the investigations are showing more and more of this. There's a group called Live Action that does undercover
Exactly.
investigations and films them,
Right.
and they've uncovered this happening over and over
Exactly.
again. So it would seem that this is not an isolated event, and it's just really, really sad. The lawsuit says there were numerous indications of sex abuse, and they just sort of ignored it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the live action, you know, undercover videos and things, because I think those videos really help out to show that in a lot of these circumstances, when people come in, underage people, that they are pressured into doing things that they don't want, or things are covered up.
Right, and it's awful. And you know, there's another aspect to this. Colorado state law also requires that written notification of an abortion be given to the parents in the case of a minor receiving an abortion. So this 13-year-old girl, they should have sent the notification to her mother, and they didn't do that either,
yikes.
according to this lawsuit. So again, this abuse could have been stopped much more quickly if they had followed the laws here.
Yeah.
And the Planned Parenthood declined to comment on the case, citing the organization's long-standing commitment to quality and confidentiality. But I mean, here you have this organization that's receiving $500 million in taxpayer funding every year, and just more and more things continue to get exposed about this organization, and it's really scary.
Absolutely, and you mentioned the word exposed, and I think that that's what's really happened, especially in the past year, to Planned Parenthood. They've been exposed on a lot of different things, from the live action videos, and I know Abby Johnson has done some work there, and I mean, stories, more and more stories like this are coming about, and so I'm just wondering what could happen or how long it could be till people start waking up. And I think a lot more people are coming to the realization that,
Absolutely.
that especially with stories like this, that, you know, Planned Parenthood is not, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinions that have seen stories like this, they're not really about true women's health. They're really about profit. Like I know, I think it's something like 54% of their profit comes from abortions, you know, and they claim that, oh, you know, that's not our focus. And then like a few weeks ago, there was a story about, you know, they gave an award, I don't know if you saw this, but they awarded, you know, this particular clinic for exceeding abortion expectations.
Yeah, there have been reports of quotas.
They exceeded their quotas. So it's like, if these are supposed to be safe, legal, and rare, apparently not so much the rare part, right? Especially when they're pushing to be like, yeah, we want you exceeded your abortion quota so much. It's like, okay, so you're telling the public one thing, and then on the other hand, you're, you know, promoting it. And truly, they know that's where a huge chunk of their revenue comes from.
Absolutely, and I think we're starting to see a response to that, and several states have now made an effort to try to cut funding, state funding, and say we're not going to give government funding to this group anymore. They've just, you know, there's waste and fraud and abuse, all these accusations. We're not going to give it, and Planned Parenthood is fighting back very hard against that. And actually, there was just a bill that the Senate voted on just recently this past week, and that was an attempt to basically remove all restrictions on abortion whatsoever. So it would have said that you can't ban sex-selective abortions. You can't require actual doctors to be the ones performing the abortions. You can have lower medical people performing it. You can't ban telemedicine abortions where the doctor's not even there with them for the abortion. And so, and this bill is being promoted as the ultimate standard for women's health. But you look at these things, these measures that are being created to support and protect women's health, like in this case, to prevent sex abuse, cover up, all of these things. And that bill, it's being lauded as this women's health bill, but it was not supporting women's health. It actually failed by 4 votes very narrowly. So it didn't make it in the Senate. But that's the kind of pushback that we're seeing from Planned Parenthood, because they realize that they're being exposed.
Yeah, they're being exposed, so they feel like we need to push and lobby for these types of laws to get passed. That way we don't even have to deal with these sorts of things, right? Because it's a law, we don't have to deal with that. But yeah, I mean, we just, with some of the types of bills that get brought forth, you're like, what are they thinking? Doesn't it just sound so radical? But I think in some people's minds, it's just the standard for them. They're like, this is what it should be. And it's almost like the pendulum has swung so far to the right for women's rights that it's shot out of even what you could like conceive as being like something that is healthcare.
Yes. Sir.
And so like something that's good for women, right? Especially in situations like this, where this bill that you mentioned could, you know, you wouldn't have to report these things, and you know, situations just like that happened at this Planned Parenthood. It's not protecting women.
Right.
It's giving them wider access, but when you get this wider access, like I know we've done a story about contraception being the morning after pill being available on Amazon, right?
Right.
And things like that.
Right. Is that really helping women?
Is that really helping women? because women have access to that already. It's just allowing anonymous access and super easy access, which can allow for situations just like this to occur.
Exactly. I agree completely. Coming up after the break, is it possible to counter the effects of the abortion pill once it's already been taken?
Stay tuned to find out.
Welcome back to Heroic Media. In case you're just joining us, I'm Michelle Bauman.
And I'm Patrick Cordova.
In our next story, RU486, also known as the abortion pill, is becoming increasingly common in the United States. One Colorado woman took the pill and regretted her decision. She was able to find a doctor who could reverse its effects and save her baby.
Pretty awesome.
This is awesome. I didn't realize this was possible.
Absolutely. And good thing we have an expert to tell us about it.
Exactly. So I was actually able to talk with Dr. Edwin Anselmi, who works at Our Lady of Hope Medical Clinic in Centennial, Colorado. And he was able to explain, he was one of the people who has been able to successfully do these reversals. And he was able to explain a little bit about how it works. So let's go ahead and take a look at what he has to say. Dr. Anselmi, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Michelle. It's my pleasure.
So I was not aware that it was even possible to do an abortion pill reversal in some cases. I'm sure that some of our viewers were not aware of that either. Can you just explain how that process works?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of the process myself until about a year ago. The way it works is the abortion pill, RU486, also known as mifepristone, blocks progesterone receptors. And progesterone is a very important hormone in maintaining pregnancy. The progesterone affects the uterus to make it capable of supporting pregnancy and keeping the baby alive. When the progesterone receptors are blocked, it takes away the uterus's ability to support the pregnancy, and it results in a miscarriage or abortion.
So all you do is then go and give an extra strong dose of progesterone, and it's able to counter the effects of the abortion pill.
Correct. If we can give a higher dose of progesterone to the woman who's already taken the pill, then it will allow the uterus to continue to support the pregnancy.
Wow.
The sooner the progesterone is given after taking the pill, the better. But it looks like it's about 2/3 of the time that we can save the pregnancy.
Wow. Is this something that's widely known in the medical community, or would there be a small percentage of maybe pro-life Catholic doctors who even know about this?
Well, I think the credit should go to Dr. Hilgers, who's been working with progesterone for decades and researching its effect and how we can use it to reduce the rates of miscarriage, and in this case, reduce the rate of abortion. So.
Absolutely. And just for our viewers, Dr. Hilgers, he is the man who developed the Creighton method of natural family planning. That's a method that allows women to understand their fertility and their own cycle in order to both either achieve pregnancy or avoid it. It has very high success rates. And Dr. Anselmi, when we're talking about these reversals of the abortion pill, you have done these a couple of times, correct?
Yes, a total of 3 times, and we've been successful in 2 of those 3 times. Yeah.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. What would you say to someone who is experiencing an unplanned pregnancy and who's maybe scared, maybe has financial difficulties or social difficulties, relational problems?
Yeah, I would just reassure her that she's not the only one who's been through this. There's lots of women who are in exactly the same situation as her, and there's so many people out there that understand what she's going through and want to help.
Absolutely. One more question for you. You run a pro-life clinic in the general Denver area, and you tell people when they come in that you are running your practice in accordance with the Catholic faith. You don't prescribe contraception, you don't perform or refer for abortions, for sterilizations, and yet you have a very strong practice. You have a growing patient base. Do you think that there's a demand for this authentic Catholic vision of healthcare?
Yes, I think so. There's a lot of people that that are pro-life and value life and want a doctor who thinks the same way. And so I get a lot of thanks and support from Catholic and non-Catholic patients alike. So.
Wow, great, wonderful. Well, Dr. Anselmi, thank you so much for joining me here today. Thank you for all of your insight.
Thanks again for having me.
Wow, that is really incredible. Really incredible. am just shocked that that's possible, and it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting that how successful this is. They've had with this, it's www.abortionpillreversal.com, and people can look up and see if there's someone in their area who's able to do this. And 100 women have taken this progesterone protocol since January of 2013 when it was introduced, and 60 out of the 100 have been able to save their baby. And so it's got about a 2/3 success rate in rescuing these babies after the abortion mechanism has already begun, which is absolutely incredible to me.
It is incredible, and it's pretty cool. Like I never really thought about like, oh, you should get this reversed. Of course, people do take the pill like out of fear or just like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And then they have some time to think about it, and then they're like, I don't want to do this. So I guess I never really thought about that scenario.
Sure, and I think it speaks also to the isolating nature of the abortion pill.
Yeah.
So this is not something where you're going in and you have a doctor performing this surgery. The doctor gives you the pill, but then you leave, and so it takes effect, and it essentially causes you to miscarry in this early stage of pregnancy. And so it's a very isolating thing. Sort of send the woman home. We don't want to deal with you. We don't want to be there with you. It's a very isolating thing.
That's true.
But I thought this was such a powerful story. I'm glad it's out there. I hope people know about this resource.
Right.
And I think it also sort of taps into the problem of trying to find a physician who aligns with Catholic principles. That's not always easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, there's a new website, www.wellcatholic.com. And this website's great because it links people who are looking for healthcare services, but with a Catholic background, a Catholic perspective.
Right, exactly.
And so I'm really glad that you mentioned that website previously and this one as well, because these resources exist.
Absolutely.
And it's really nice to see this because I don't know what it is with the Catholic world, but a lot of times communities and things seem to be a little bit behind, like technologically, and like, you know what I mean? And it's like, this is great because this is exactly something that somebody could use. And I'm not sure that if when you were speaking with the doctor that if he said that women come to him after they've taken the abortion pill and they're just like, hey, is it possible to do this? Or if they already know about it, because I had no idea.
Right, yeah.
But sites like these will really give people an upper hand on being able to link them to healthcare professionals that can answer these questions and provide these services, these life-affirming services.
And it's important, this is just one more reason, we've covered a number of religious freedom stories. This is why religious freedom is so critical in healthcare, so that we can have Catholic providers who are explicitly Catholic and who say, I'm going to uphold the Church's teaching about abortion, contraception, sterilization, these kinds of things in my practice. And it's just this sort of perspective, it's a different perspective, a life-affirming perspective that comes with it that is absolutely something that we want to have in healthcare.
Absolutely. And there's more to Catholic than just being pro-life or anti-contraceptive or any of this, but I think that these sites and this story is really great because it gives us hope and we can recover from the mistakes that we've made.
Absolutely.
All right, stay tuned. We have one more story coming up after the break. Welcome back to Heroic Media. In our final story, an emotional account of two men embracing their newborn baby boy has spread like wildfire across the internet. The article has led some to question the article's use of the phrase unrelated gestational carrier in place of the word mother. So this is really interesting, right? Because, so I guess just to give a little bit of background.
Sure.
So two homosexual men decided that they wanted to both become fathers, and so they had, I guess, kind of a surrogate. They did some crazy things with genetic material, apparently, which I think is really where this unrelated phrase comes from, because I don't think they used the mother's egg. But anyway, she was the carrier for their child, the one that they, I guess, adopted, or I don't know exactly what happened, but it will be their child. And so there's this very emotional account of what happened. There's pictures, they had a photographer there, and there's just, even in the pictures that you see, there's like, the mother's just kind of like this side, doesn't really matter type thing. And then the phrase that was used for the mother, the person that grows you, is unrelated gestational carrier. And so it seems kind of insensitive towards the mother. And so some have raised a lot of questions about the use of this phrase and kind of how insensitive it is and how anti-woman it is. I guess. What are your thoughts?
I think it's not just the phrase that's anti-woman. The concept, what's happening here, is very deeply degrading to women because they are treating this woman as a body part, they're renting out her womb for 9 months so they can grow this baby that they want.
Yeah.
And I think that is deeply offensive, and I think that is deeply harmful. And I'm sure that some people might say, oh, well, she consented to it,
right.
What's the problem? But actually, if you start really looking into some of these surrogacy type situations, you really find that the women who consent to these are being exploited. And they consent because they're poor, often they're foreign, because they feel like they have no other choice. So just as, women are sometimes driven into prostitution, not because they consented because they wanted to be there, but simply because they felt this was their only option to survive and provide for themselves, maybe their family, that the same kind of thing is happening with surrogacy.
Yeah.
And it's a growing problem. There's a woman named Jennifer Lal. She's the founder of the Center for Bioethics and Culture. And she has studied this significantly and made some documentaries. And she describes it as, we're treating these women as an easy bake oven. That's what we're treating them as. How is that respecting the dignity and the humanity of these women?
So then we get to the question of because it's inevitably brought up, right? Well, these people agree to this. All these people agree to this, right? And I think the one thing that we forget is that the child never agreed to any of this, right?
Go.
I mean, I think that under normal circumstances, every child should have should have a mother and a father, right?
And know their mother and their father.
And know their mother and father, instead of just being, like you said, the easy bake oven, right? Just being treated as this object to be used for an ends to a means, right? A means to an end, rather. So, I mean, I think there's so many different things. And even if people agree to things, right? More like two people agree to something, yes, let's both do this. That doesn't make it right.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, I think that's the thing that gets overlooked here. Just because we're in a society that's so pluralistic and so relativistic, that it's like, if two people agree to something, then it's okay for them.
Which is so absurd. We see the harmful consequences of this all the time.
Absolutely.
And we see that in these children. And the studies have shown that these children of these surrogate pregnancies, they struggle. They wonder about the woman who carried them for 9 months. They wonder about their father if it was through a sperm donation. And we all have this intrinsic desire to know our mother and our father. And we should not be intentionally taking steps to fight that.
Yeah.
And they've also found, interestingly, that the woman's womb is affecting this baby. So even if she's not the biological mother, it's not her egg, that the environment of her womb determines which genes are turned on and off.
Absolutely.
So there is this connection there, and we shouldn't be messing with that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Lots of different moral issues here. All right, that's it for this week on Heroic Media. Please join us next week for all the up-to-date news on the pro-life issues that matter to you.
Feel free to write to us with any comments, questions, or news tips at news@heroicmedia.org.
And please visit our website at heroicmedianews.org, where you can read more stories like the ones we discussed on this show.
That's it for today, but until next time, keep us in your prayers.
God bless.